Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. I was trying to think of what I was going to do because this is a political and 2A podcast, and I was looking at all the stuff that's going on in the world and going, how is it that this is reality? You know, I've heard on Twitter and, Tim Pool and a bunch of other people on Twitter have talked about the simulation and are we seeing the simulation break? And I don't believe in simulation theory because I'm an actual hardcore Christian. But what I do think is interesting is that you can't make these things up in the news right now. And I don't know if the media has lost its mind, if we're in cultural decay, the simulation is broken, if we live in a simulation. I don't believe that. Or just people have lost their damn mind. There was another, I guess you'd call it, mass shooting attempt. I wouldn't say it was an actual mass shooting. That's why I was thinking really hard right there of how to phrase that. A gentleman tried to go in, not a gentleman, an asshole, tried to go into a mall with a gun and was promptly stopped. I believe he hit one person, though. We're in halfway there for the amnesty being over for your pistol brace, if you're so inclined to comply. I personally think it's going to get stopped. I also think that, it's a great way to get a free SBR if that's what you want. But this last week has been difficult for me personally. And just to look at the news to go, what the hell is going on? So they've indicted the former president. And as much as I'm not a huge fan of Trump because of the stuff he's done with bump stock bans and take the guns first and come for, figure it out later, that's the wrong mentality to have, even if you're angry, especially about the 2A. And to see them go so hard, so fast after this man. I understand the orange man he rubs a lot of people along the wrong way. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it. A broke clock is right twice a day. Even some really badly broken clocks are right twice a day. But this looks like political slaughter, like you're going after political rivals and enemies. And this is a continued theme with the current administration that's going on right now. The other thing that happened Friday was, if you didn't hear, there was a guy that was prosecuted for election interference for posting a meme about Hillary Clinton in 2016. So we live in strange times. At the same time this is happening, InBev. If you don't know who InBev is, they're Bud Light, Corona. There are a lot of brands of alcohol and beer. They've basically bought up a lot of things. They're a Belgian company is where they originally started anyway. And if you're so inclined to want to put your money where your mouth is and put your dollar where you believe in your heart it belongs, and you're going to try to boycott or do whatever else, I just think it's really funny that you would go ahead and skip. One of the first posts I saw from someone today was that, well, I guess I'm done with Bud Light. I'll go to Corona. Well, guess what? InBev owns both. So welcome to the fight, because us kind of ANCAP guys, libertarian guys, have been voting with our dollars for a long time now. So let me elaborate what I'm talking about. Bud Light partners with trans activist Dylan Mullaney for March Madness. They're selling cans of Bud Light with his likeness on it, or her likeness, or however you want to talk about that person. And it doesn't make sense because the current economy for beer that I know of is for craft beer. And it's these guys like this, they are stretching really hard to try to reach back to people to buy them all the time. Except for really uninformed people who just would stick to buying it anyway because they don't really care. There's no politics in their mind, and they've checked out politically. And I understand wanting to check out politically because it wears on you. But at the same time, you don't know a damn thing about what's going on in the world, and that's something I've prided myself on since I was about 5 or 6 years old. I started getting into learning about the news and what was going on in the world by my dad waking me up early in the morning before he'd go to work so I could watch the news with him. And for me, I've talked about this as it's kind of like a way that I got to travel because you get to see all these new and different places, and not all the war stuff, but you'd also see some other stuff too. I mean, war was interesting and has always been interesting because of the firearms. But it doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense of what's going on. We're going after political rivals. This transgender issue is becoming more and more of an issue that is a non-issue. Those people, I remember going to high school and maybe one or two people were trans. And I say this because they dressed and tried to present themselves as what the opposite of the sex that they were assigned at birth. And it never was a problem because we kind of just dealt with it. They were either cool enough to the people that were around them or not, to be accepted or not, and they did their own thing. So fast forward now. Now we have people that are demanding that we accept this stuff. Look at Jeffrey Marsh. If you don't know who he is, he's the guy that's saying, you will respect me or else. And I really want to look at these people that are telling the American people in general, I don't think you understand who you're dealing with. The American people are the most heavily armed and heavily financed people on planet Earth, meaning that we have the finances to back it. And I don't care what anybody says about China trying to replace the American dollar. If you look at the Chinese economy, it's going to fail along, probably before 2030. They have a lot of problems that are going on. They have a demographic problem that's going on where they are simply going to have a population of people that are too old to reproduce. And that's where we're at. You look at the Russian demographic, and that's the same way. And the German demographic, as much as I love Germans, they're in the same place that the other three are, or the other two are. And that matters. And all this stuff really boils down to something we learned, in Economy 101 back in the day, is that money moves mountains, and the economy, whether you want to say it's money or it's goods and services being moved around, and the flow of that stuff, that actually determines a lot in the world. And we're seeing people trying to shoehorn a populace that isn't willing to do that. I have some people that are very right-leaning friends, and they don't like this stuff, and they will put their money where their mouth is eventually. But it takes them a long time to get there. And I say this because I've known libertarians for a long time now. I recently declared that I'm a total ANCAP. I've noticed that we've always done that on my particular side that I'm currently on, is that we always have moved our money or used our money to make our political beef, I guess you'd say, a thing. We would put our money behind, we find out that X brand was backing something we didn't believe in, we'd pull out from that. We'd find something else different. That's part of the market. And I don't understand how this isn't happening more. And the right is finally getting that idea that you're going to have to put your money where your mouth is, because the right funds the left. There's a lot of broke people that are in the left world, and these broke people don't have money to finance anything or to pay for anything. You look at the comic books industry, like Eric July has been talking about, like with ISOM. And you look at the comics that DC and Marvel and Image and a couple other companies are making right now, and they really have lost a lot of their audience. And why? And it's simple. It's because they're not original. They're trying to hit you over the head with, this social, emotional DEI BS, this woke BS that people are really tired of. You pick up a comic book or a magazine, you're doing it for entertainment, and maybe a little bit of knowledge in that particular field. But I never thought, like 2 years ago when the COVID stuff was hitting us, that we would end up here after COVID. So after COVID, we're looking at this stuff, or I am looking at this stuff, and I'm going, how? How in the hell did we lose our country in less than 2 years? And people will tell you, well, the right will say it's all Biden. And the left will say it's all Trump because this was going to happen before Biden got in. And I think it really goes a hell of a lot deeper than that, in that we have lost our damn mind as a country. And simply put, we've allowed the weirdos to take over the asylum. And it's time to take it back, because there's no sense in what's going on to keep happening. You know, the trans issue really is something I always thought you should have to wait till you're 18 anyway, because there are parts of your body that are going to have to develop according to, you know, what you are genetically. It's just life. And with that, you need to get those pieces parts to make your life better in the end. Now, if you decide after you're 18 to go ahead and transition, that's great. But I also would caution about something like transition for one reason. There's an extremely high suicide rate, either before, during, or after trans, because I firmly believe, and I don't think I'm the only one that does believe this, is that there is a mental health issue that's going on with these people, and they need more help than what they're getting. And I think this reflects in the 2A just as readily as anything else. Because what we're seeing is this slight increase, and I don't believe there's even an increase. I believe what you're seeing is more people tuning in and more people focusing on these violent acts. I think they've always happened. The same thing probably is happening with the trans stuff. Let's be honest. We're seeing this amplified, both left and right. Why? Okay, because this has become a wedge issue now, when in reality this should be, it statistically should be a very, very minor problem to have to deal with. And to have children, specifically, being exposed to sexualization of any kind, whether it's going to Hooters or going to a drag show, having been to both places, full disclosure, I can say they are not appropriate for little kids. So why the hell are you taking them to these places? And why the hell, as parents of siblings or peers, not standing up for their other friends' kids and saying, hey, dude, this is stupid. Why are you taking a kid to go watch someone twerk and to strip? Whether it's a guy or a girl, it doesn't matter. This kid is a kid. Okay? You focus on the books that we're now worried about, and that I'll be honest, I've seen on teachers' desks in K-12 schools. I've never seen an administrator other than maybe thumb through it and cast it aside, and it was something that somebody handed to him. But the stuff exists, and it doesn't surprise me, because there's a lot of teachers that are actually Marxist or outright leftist, and they've infiltrated into a community that has always tried to protect kids. And now they're using these wedge issues as a means to attack kids. And what do I mean by that, attack kids? They believe they're protecting kids because there's so many more trans people, and there's so many more of these other oppressed peoples that were not identified beforehand. And I am here to tell you that's not the case. Kids are going to have to shake out some of this stuff in the classroom. Kids are going to have to shake out some of this stuff in life. People are going to have to shake out some of this stuff in life. So why are we letting the idiots run the insane asylum? Because if you look at this stuff, look at these headlines. Biden proclaims March 11th Transgender Day of Visibility. Okay, why? Statistically, we're talking about a very, very, very small population, and not to stigmatize or put any more pressure on this, because I believe they already have enough problems, mental problems, that why does it take this focus? Why are our administration, the people that are put ahead of us, above us, why are these the issues they're willing to die on these hills for? You know, Trump, for all of his bad, there's a lot of good. And for all of the other stuff in between, there's probably a lot more that we could say that was good for any of these guys. But what we're focusing on are idiots. We're letting people who have no mentality or no mental faculties left run the country. And we are headlong into a wall soon. And there's enough people that can see it. This arrest of Trump, let's think about that. Whether you like him or not, this looks and smacks of a political rival being arrested before an election in a year. That's what it looks like to someone who, by all means right now, am neutral in this fight. Because if he did something bad, I absolutely want him taken care of and I absolutely want him arrested. But can we talk about Biden and his family and the corruption before he was elected? And yeah, you're going to say, well, that's not been proven. No, the media hasn't been able to allow you to see the information, but it has been proven hardcore, concretely, that Biden has been involved in some very dirty, shady things, and his family has too. And we're not addressing it because we have two tribes that are always fighting against each other because their person isn't winning. During COVID, politics became like football. Everyone had to side in and have a team. And I'll be the first one to admit that I've sided with Trump more times than I probably would like to. Personally, what I'm becoming very aware of is that the government has no damn clue what the hell they're doing. And they're relying on people that have been hired and kept in their positions way past their time. We have people in power right now who are lifetime politicians surrounded by lifetime people who have been in the same positions of power, administrative positions of power, in D.C. and in New Mexico. And why is this accepted? It's because we have to have our tribe win. And we don't have enough tribe. I say we, my people, the ones in rural United States, don't have enough people, population, that flag enough to change the regime. You know, I get tired of seeing people consistently talk about the election system we have in the United States. You know, the Electoral College. That's an outdated regime. No, it actually gives a little bit of a footing for us, for people like me in rural United States that don't feel like we're being heard. Because I would much rather figure out how we're going to get inflation under control, how we're going to deal with the coming energy crisis in the United States as well as the world, because it seems like they're being stupid about killing fossil fuels before we even have the other solutions up and running. They're trying to push you in that direction when there's no way you can do it. If you check out one thing from all of this, check out Peter Zeihan. And there's a reason why I mention him often, is because he has done a lot of research, and a lot of it in the cultural space, I think he's a little bit leftist. He's a traditional liberal is what I would say. But he's very much a conservative on the business side. What would be a traditional conservative on the business side. And with that, what I'm talking about is if you look at what it would take to go EV, electric vehicle, you would need 7 times more copper than the world has right now. How are we going to do that? We have never in the history of humankind produced more of a single input, and we're not going to need just copper. We're going to need 13 more inputs to make a vehicle, an electric vehicle. How are we going to scale those all out when the sources for these places are places we're not going to be able to interface with because of sanctions, because of war, because of whatever, specifically Russia and China? Who does all the finishing of copper and platinum and palladium and aluminum? Yeah, you can get the bauxite for aluminum from like Australia or even parts of the United States and Canada, but who finishes it into raw metal? China, Ukraine, Russia. 2 of those countries are kind of having a chat about who owns what right now, and we don't have access to that stuff or won't have access to that stuff for a while until that's settled, because some of that stuff is going offline completely. And there's a place that the Western society has decided that we are not going to interface with Russia anymore because of what they've done. And I can't say I blame them, because you cannot invade another neighbor and then say, oh, well, it's because of someone else that did this. It's because NATO was on our border. We had to secure our border. Guess what? That's not an excuse. Countries can do whatever the hell they want. All this madness, all these continued magnified shootings and everything else that we keep seeing that is so demonizing to the 2A is because of tribalism, and is because people have lost their damn mind. How do we fix it? I don't know. All I do know is that we have a big problem with our society, and we have a huge problem with this type of stuff coming up all the time in media and ruminating and getting people all pumped up on these particular wedge issues just to divide and conquer us. Like, share, subscribe, be great.